Welcome to Have You Read It, the channel where we bring books to life one summary at a time. Today, we're diving into Annie Jacobsen's chilling and timely book, Nuclear War, a Scenario. This isn't your typical light reading. It's a stark and detailed look at what a nuclear war could look like in the 21st century. It's a scary topic, but an important one, and Jacobsen pulls no punches. Before we begin, it's important to highlight the foundation of Jacobsen's work. Nuclear War, a Scenario isn't a work of fiction, but rather a meticulously researched scenario based on declassified documents, interviews with experts, and decades of government planning. Jacobsen spoke with presidential advisors, cabinet members, scientists, soldiers, intelligence analysts, and many others involved in nuclear war planning and aftermath protocols. While the specific events are fictionalized, the underlying science, technology, and strategic thinking are all too real. The book's scenario begins with a North Korean 1-megaton thermonuclear bomb detonating over the Pentagon. Jacobsen chose this starting point because a bolt-out-of-the-blue attack on D.C. is a major fear among those in the know, and because the Pentagon, as the heart of U.S. military operations, would be a prime target. The effects of this initial blast are described in horrific detail, from the initial flash of light hotter than the sun to the shockwave, firestorm, and the ensuing carnage. Jacobsen meticulously details the math behind the destruction, drawing heavily on the effects of nuclear weapons, a U.S. government publication detailing the devastating consequences of nuclear detonations. She uses survivor accounts from Hiroshima and Nagasaki to further illustrate the human cost of nuclear war. Jacobsen then takes us through the first 24 minutes following the launch of the North Korean missile, detailing the complex chain of events involved in detecting, assessing, and responding to a nuclear threat. We hear about SBIRS satellites detecting the launch, the scramble at various command centers like the Aerospace Data Facility in Colorado and the National Military Command Center in the Pentagon, and the agonizing wait for ground radar confirmation. A key element of this initial phase is the concept of launch on warning, a policy requiring the U.S. to launch a counterattack as soon as an inbound nuclear missile is detected, rather than waiting to be hit. This policy, coupled with the fact that the president alone has the authority to launch nuclear weapons, creates an incredibly short decision window of just 6 minutes. Jacobsen highlights the inherent dangers of this policy, quoting experts who have called it inexcusably dangerous and a dangerous relic of the Cold War. The book even details a scenario where a test tape mistakenly inserted into a NORAD computer nearly triggered a nuclear war. In Jacobsen's scenario, the president, under immense pressure from advisors who advocate for an immediate retaliatory strike, orders a counterattack against North Korea. This involves selecting options from the Black Book, a classified document outlining various nuclear strike scenarios. The book then follows the deployment of B-2 stealth bombers, the scrambling of U.S. land-based ICBMs, and the positioning of nuclear-armed submarines. While these systems were designed for prompt and devastating response, Jacobsen notes the difficulties that arise. For instance, loading nuclear weapons onto B-2 bombers is a time-consuming process, rendering them less effective in a rapid escalation scenario. Additionally, Jacobsen, citing experts like Ted Postel, notes the limitations of U.S. missile defense systems in intercepting incoming ICBMs, emphasizing that a successful intercept is far from guaranteed. She highlights the expensive and ultimately flawed SBX radar system, underscoring the vulnerabilities in the U.S. defense strategy. As the U.S. counterstrike unfolds, a second North Korean missile, a submarine-launched ballistic missile, strikes the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant in California. This act, a direct violation of international law, sets off the Devil's Scenario, a catastrophic core meltdown, and the release of enormous amounts of radiation. Jacobsen uses the Fukushima disaster as a reference point, emphasizing the long-term, devastating consequences of such an event, potentially rendering vast areas uninhabitable for generations. This second strike introduces another layer of complexity. How do other nuclear powers, like Russia and China, react to a seemingly unprovoked attack on the United States? Jacobsen portrays the confusion and paranoia in Moscow as they try to make sense of the attacks and determine who is responsible. The limitations of Russia's Tundra early warning satellite system, its tendency to produce false alarms, further complicate the situation. In the midst of this chaos, the North Korean leader detonates a super EMP weapon hidden in a satellite orbiting over the United States. This EMP attack cripples America's power grid, transportation systems, and communication networks, causing widespread chaos and effectively paralyzing the country. Jacobsen details the devastating consequences of this attack on critical infrastructure, drawing on the work of the EMP Commission and its warnings about a potential electric Armageddon. SCADA systems, which control everything from power plants to water treatment facilities, fail, triggering cascading failures across multiple sectors. As the U.S. struggles to cope with the EMP attack, Russia, convinced it's under attack from the U.S., launches its own nuclear arsenal. Jacobsen highlights the hole over the North Pole, a strategic vulnerability requiring U.S. missiles to fly over Russian territory to reach North Korea, further fueling the miscommunication and escalation. What follows is a full-scale nuclear exchange between the U.S. and Russia, with devastating consequences for both countries and the world. Jacobsen then shifts her focus to the aftermath of this nuclear war, painting a bleak picture of a world plunged into nuclear winter. She explains how soot and debris from burning cities block out the sun, causing temperatures to plummet and triggering widespread famine. The sources explain how agriculture collapses, fresh water becomes contaminated, and survivors struggle to find food and shelter in a radioactive frozen wasteland. Jacobsen describes the breakdown of the food chain, from the death of phytoplankton in the oceans to the starvation of larger animals, mirroring the effects of the asteroid impact that wiped out the dinosaurs. She emphasizes the long-term consequences of nuclear war, including increased ultraviolet radiation from a damaged ozone layer, the spread of disease, and the potential for genetic mutations in future generations. She cites a study predicting that more than 5 billion people could die from starvation alone in the aftermath of a nuclear war between the U.S. and Russia. In a final thought-provoking section, Jacobsen jumps forward 24,000 years. She uses the archaeological discovery of Göbekli Tepe, a prehistoric site in Turkey, to illustrate how little we may know about the civilizations that came before us, and how little future civilizations may know about us. She suggests that after a nuclear war, our advanced technology and knowledge could be lost, leaving future generations to puzzle over the remnants of our destroyed cities, much like archaeologists today try to understand the mysteries of Göbekli Tepe. So, what's the main takeaway from Nuclear War? A scenario. Jacobsen's chilling scenario underscores the terrifying reality of nuclear war. It's not just about the immediate destruction, but the long-term, catastrophic consequences for the environment, the global ecosystem, and the future of humanity. The book emphasizes the fragility of our interconnected world, how easily miscommunication and escalation can lead to unthinkable destruction. Here are a few key heuristics to remember. Nuclear war is unwinnable. There are no winners in a nuclear exchange. Everyone loses. Deterrence is a gamble. The idea that nuclear weapons prevent war is a risky bet, one that can fail catastrophically. Communication is key. Clear and direct communication between nuclear powers is essential to prevent miscalculation and escalation. The real enemy is the weapon. The ultimate threat isn't any one nation or leader, but the existence of nuclear weapons themselves. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next book dive.